Okay. We've reached that point in the season where I actually have to ask you the question out loud. What's our cold open going to be? Yeah, our streams have a little bit of an issue here today. Yeah, that's weird.
It is?
Yeah.
What's weird?
Yeah, our stream. Oh,
Streaming's
okay. There we are.
here?
Now we are streaming fine. It gives me these warning messages,
we're live?
and it's like, yeah. Hold on. I'm actually taking my Wi-Fi off. Okay, now we're good. So anyway, we reached that point in the season where the cold open ideas we run out of them. Okay, and the JB says I've got an idea. Folks, brace yourself. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about, last weekend, you went to Grove City, you had that conversation with Coach DiDonato where he was talking about how like the 0-10 teams really built the foundation for now this top 10 nationally ranked, playoff caliber Wolverines team. And it made me think back, this is our 16th year, our 17th season, if you look over that shoulder there. We've been doing this for a long time. And the first guest we ever had on In the Huddle was a young man at the time, a quarterback from RPI named Jimmy Robertson, who would later go on to be an assistant coach at Merchant Marine under the Tupper, right? Eventually, he got his first head coaching shot at FDU Florham, which on a T-shirt I'm wearing now, and we got from from them a few years ago. So thanks for we always love getting merch from D3 teams, and we try to wear it where we can. And here is this Devils team that's 5-0. You're going to go see them play Del Val, which has been the reigning MAC champions for many years now. And it makes me think about maybe Coach Robertson started something there in New Jersey, and now here they are on the cusp of potentially going 6-0, knocking off the 6 or 7 time defending champions. I think a lot of times people think that football programs just kind of happen over, and they'll have these great seasons overnight. But the reality is that this FDU Forum thing started back with Jimmy Robertson, and I'm curious to see. We'll talk about the game a little bit later, and I know you'll be there on Saturday. But after listening, kind of rethinking about what Coach DiDonato said, I'm like, This FDU Forum is one of those teams. It started with our first guest, who is the head coach, and he handed it off to one of his assistants, and now this thing has just kept growing, and that's a cool thing. We've been doing this for so long. We have this history of seeing this stuff kind of play out over a decade or more, and I'm excited to talk about that game and all the other exciting games that are going to be kicking off in Week 7. There's the open.
Let me translate for those of you that have no idea what he just said. We're old, and we've watched a lot of people come and go in this show, okay? This is 16 years, 17th season. Jimmy Robertson, that was 2008 you're talking about, kicking off this show back then when we were a live call-in show back when. It is interesting that we did go back to a live component after kind of swearing off it for a little while and pre-recording stuff. Friday mornings are more fun live, I guess. But you know what? We got 2 great guests coming up. We got some great previews, obviously. You can see we got a USA South battle, more WEAC drama. We got predictions coming up, a whole lot more. This is season 17, 16 years of In the Huddle.
I did drums, Dan. And then
oh God, no.
No,
slide
okay.
to cover the screen. Yeah. Let's talk about our games here. Note for this Saturday, mainly Saturday games. There is a Friday tilt that we'll talk about in these slides, which is kind of interesting. It is in WEAC country, but we'll get to that when we get to Region 6. For now, Region 1, we start with kind of a military-themed game, Norwich versus Merchant Marine, and Salve Coast Guard. Good game there in the NUMAC as well. Hold on. They can't see it if I got the slide up. There's the Norwich helmet. Yes, we've got it. But you also have some Merchant Marine stuff, don't you, somewhere? Or have you not ever gotten it?
I don't. They've never. I don't know.
Kroll.
Maybe I need to make a donation.
Jamison
or something.
Kroll,
On,
head
man.
coach. My God, this guy needs some Merchant Marine gear. Where is it? Come on, Kroll. I know you watch this show with your staff. Come on, man. But they've got an important game because that Norwich game is never simple for them with the military theme to it. You talked about FDU Florham versus Del Val. We'll talk more about that in predictions, obviously. Lev Val and Kings is also important because Kings is undefeated in the MAC in their record as well. Trinity versus Middlebury, always a good NESCAC game there, obviously. With Trinity, one of the 21 undefeated teams we'll talk about later as well. Bridgewater State versus Western Connecticut, kind of the first of the triumvirate teams to go at each other, as UMass Dartmouth is in that grouping as well. I pick FDU Florham versus Del Val. I'm going there for the goodness sake. Yep. And you picked Bridgewater State versus Western Connecticut. What's your insight on that choice?
Well, I just feel, like from your conversations, with the WestCon guys a couple weeks ago, I mean, they were definitely slighted by the MASCAC, and so I love the storyline behind the let's take the trophy out the door with us kind of a thing, and Bridgewater State is the first step along that way out. So, the Bears have been a little hot and cold this season, but they're playing good football now, and that should be a really good game under the lights down there in Danbury.
I agree with you. If I could have gotten there with that 5 p.m. start against the 1 p.m. start in Pennsylvania, if it was like noon and 5, I could have probably made it. Yeah, it was just not going to work out. But you know what? UMass Dartmouth versus WestCon could be a big game down the line if I had to guess. Yeah. Let's go to Region 2 here. We don't have this in the prediction set, but this is my upset pick of the week on Quick Hits. I am actually picking Franklin and Marshall to beat Johns Hopkins in Quick Hits this week.
What?
I just think that the Dips are playing good ball. They had a very tough one against Ursinus that they lost, but only by a touchdown. And Johns Hopkins, I think this is an interesting matchup. One that could go the wrong way for them if they're not careful with all these injuries mounting up for them offensively. So I will put that out there. That is in Quick Hits on D3Football.com when it comes out. I was a little late today with that, as this has been a hell of a week. It is now? Good. So there is that. Yep. I've also picked Rowan versus Christopher Newport as one of my games of the week, but Grove City versus W&J. We talked extensively about that game's potential implications. I actually bring it up inside Quick Hits about, hey, the WEAC should be rooting for Grove City because they're doing damage to themselves to the extent that they need to make sure the PAC doesn't get 3 teams into the playoffs. And so anybody that thinks that they could be on the bubble should be rooting for Grove City on Saturday. That's just pure and simple the reality, because we end up with 9-1 teams 3 times in the PAC. I think all 3 go. I just don't see how they don't go. RPI Ithaca also a big game this weekend as well in Region 2. So any other thoughts on that Region 2 grouping there?
No, I just think to kind of reiterate what we talked about in the last Crunch Time episode, that, sort of my biggest fear of the whole MPI robot playoff selection thing is that they're basically just going to default to 9-win teams. And so, like you said, if you are in one of these bubble situations, whether you're in Wisconsin, Ohio, or wherever, you really want to have a clear-cut champion out of Western Pennsylvania. It'll make your lives easier and your access a lot better because, if there is a 3-way tie at the top of the MAC, I think all 3 teams will get in, and that's going to cause some consternation across the country. So, interesting to see. The Presidents have a very explosive offense. They probably should have beaten Carnegie Mellon when they played a couple weeks ago. They made a few mistakes down the stretch. It'll be interesting to see how Grove City, if they can kind of get off to a better start than Carnegie Mellon did and hang on like they did last weekend.
Just to correct you, so the MAC, it's the PAC, because I'm going to the MAC after being in the PAC last week type of thing. Yeah,
right.
They're all Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us
MAC
about
is probably Eastern, right? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. Let's go to Region 3. You tell us about this one as our guest number 1. It comes from this region.
Yeah, so Center is in the, kind of in the catbird seat now in the SAA. They're unbeaten in SAA play. They only beat Maryville by a field goal. So, the Colonels have been kind of living dangerously here. They've had some close calls. We talked about them. They almost gave up a lead to Millsaps too. So the Warriors are a team that can surprise you sometimes. So that's an interesting SAA battle to keep an eye on. UMHB trying to pick themselves off the mat after a really rough weekend against Hardin Simmons, and Howard Payne will be hosting them. So hopefully this business trip will do some good for the Crusaders, but you can't look past HPU. They have a very explosive offense and can put up points. Huntington, Maryville, we talked about this for a couple weeks now. Given the fact that Maryville and Brevard's game was canceled due to the flooding and the issues around the hurricane, this is kind of a must-win game for the Scots. If they win this game, they set themselves up pretty well to at least have a shot at going undefeated in the conference. If they lose to Huntington, it probably helps Brevard as they have a head-to-head matchup with the Hawks later this season. So that's a big game in the USA South with definite playoff considerations there. Bridgewater, Shenandoah, always a great Odakian kind of matchup there under the lights. And then Hardin Simmons, McMurray, best team in the ASC versus the best team right now, at least in the SCAC. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I'll just stick with the acronym there. But it should be some good Region 3 games.
I see our guest has his hat all in place. He's looking good, ready to go here. So let's introduce him. JB, do the honors.
All right, well, he's number 2 in your programs, but number 1 in the Henderson family and everyone else's hearts there in Tennessee. From all the way down in Miami, Florida, he came up to play football with Maryville. And so we'd like to introduce you all to the USA South Defensive Player of the Week from last week, and just a great all-around guy and player, Mr. Grant Henderson, senior defensive back from the Scots. Hey, how you doing, Grant? Nope.
Oh boy, Grant, we don't have your audio, Grant. Make sure you're unmuted on your end if possible. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Should have done a mic check first.
We've got an SID coming in to save the day, or let's see what we got here.
Yes. No worries.
Here's what we're going to do.
Doing this live.
We're going to go back. Grant is looking perplexed, as is everybody else over there. One thing we always tell our guests is if all else fails, go to a cell phone and use a browser on the cell phone. It's just as easy ultimately to do it, and usually audio works in that situation. So we'll get Grant on here. Don't you worry, folks. He's looking good. He's ready for his close-up. We know that much here. So everybody be patient, and we will get Grant there. See, that's what happens when you say that only James Baker is going to be hosting him on the show.
Yeah, right. Did you push the mute button on him, Frank? Come on, man.
No, not at all. So, JB, the next 2 regions, as always, seem to have a little bit less action because there's a little bit less teams in these 2 regions. But we'll bring up region number 4 here first, and that is going to have a lot of OAC action in it. I'll explain my pick. You explain yours after you go through the games.
Well, yeah. Okay, so we have Wittenberg, Kenyon in the NCAC. We got DePaul, Denison, which some people from the D3Football.com Quick Hits article is saying that maybe the Big Red can pull off an upset. So far, the Tigers have looked pretty dominant, and they're in the top 25 and defending conference champs. But Denison's played some big teams, and they went up against Linfield, I think, in week 1, and so they're prepared for this kind of a matchup. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. It's a 2:00 kickoff. Baldwin Wallace and John Carroll. I guess this is the last time that they play for that rock trophy or whatever. It's just kind of an interesting looking thing with painted rock trophy. Is that kind of what it is, Frank? I know there's a formal name for it, but that with John Carroll moving to a different conference, might be the last time that these 2 Ohio rivals line up. So good to see how that one shakes out. Worcester, Ohio Wesleyan in the nightcap, and we've got I had Marietta Muskingum as my pick because I really feel we got a question from Big Tone on Twitter, like who are the dark horse teams that you could see in the tournament. I think if Marietta ends up going 9-1 in the OAC, maybe they'll upset Mount Union and that will shake things up. But If they don't, and they're a 9-1 team, I think they can get into the tournament and do some damage. They're a pretty good team. They've been kind of on the rise, and so that's why I like that one. I want to see how they do against Muskie.
And for Baldwin Wallace, John Carroll, I picked just to complete this thought. That is actually an implication game for possible playoff scenarios because there could be a possibility of an 8-2 OAC team going into the playoffs. And so that situation with those teams, the way they're standing right now, could be important with that game. We'll talk more about that later. Got some good news. It looks like we have resolved our issues with Grant. Our other guest at 9:35 is there, and I can already see his audio bar moving up and down too. So it looks like we're going to be good to go for the rest of the show. I say that now. That is the worst thing I could have ever said. So from Miami originally, now in Tennessee, Grant Henderson, can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. See that? A little bit of fast work there. We got you. Thanks for putting up with our, funky software, although it's very good software, and it gets us the ability to talk to good folks like yourself. Is it all about the U for you as well down in Miami, or what?
Yeah, I'm definitely a Canes fan. Been one growing up my whole life.
I teach there every now August actually in the law school down there, so I don't get a chance to go to the games anymore because August is a little early for that, but I do miss going to a good Canes game every now and then. Grant, you have some big important games. You don't get to watch much of that Saturday Canes football because of the stuff that you guys face. You guys have had an interesting season with the whole drama with the Brevard game and whatnot, and that was going to be a big tilt for you guys. But then you got a big one coming up this weekend against Huntington. Let's talk first things first here. I mean, defensively, Maryville's had very good moments throughout this season. That's why you guys are where you are. Take us through the season. How did you guys get into this position? Because it seems like we've started talking about Maryville a little bit more and more every year on our show. And, finally getting a guest here is important for us to do that. But, tell us about the progression as a leader here to get that defense especially in a position to get you guys on this D3 map.
Man, we really just been putting our heads down and putting the work in to get where we are now. We know that we had a lot of people who didn't really believe in us. And, we always been like the underdogs versus a lot of teams. But we just always just put our head down and work no matter who we were up against or what the case may be. We just knew that if we kept working, we can be where we are now. We still got our whole season ahead of us, and as does Huntington. So we're just ready to take on whatever it is.
Yeah, and your defense has done a fantastic job this year. You're only allowing 11 points per game. And here's a Huntington team that's coming to town that is also undefeated in the conference. They did have a loss to Barry in week 1, and then they also kind of had a surprising loss to Hendricks in week 4 by a field goal. And so, you guys have been taking care of business. It would have been great if you had the chance to play Brevard, but at least you control your destiny as far as the conference championship goes. Tell us a little bit about this series with Huntington. I know they've always been one of the top dogs in the conference, and this is your last year in the conference before heading off to the SAA. Is there something within the senior class that's sort of like, hey, let's take the trophy on our way out?
It's not too much just versus Huntington. We want to beat everybody on our schedule. So we look at it as that. Like, we don't really care about who it is we have to play. We just know that we have to win them in order to get a championship. So, our defense, we all grew up together. We all been here a while, and we all pretty much know the system. And we know that Huntington has a pretty good team. They have some good receivers. They got a good scheme behind their back. So we just got to come with it and play hard.
Grant, as you saw the graphic I just showed you, you guys are 3-1 because that center game, that was a tough game, obviously, against a future SAA foe. For everybody out there that's been watching things, they know center is a tough team this year. They've been playing some good ball against whoever they show up against. What did you guys learn in that game? I mean, you did keep them down to a 17-point total, but it wasn't enough because the offense couldn't put up the requisite points to win the game ultimately. But, I mean, what did you learn, and what did the team learn from that game? Because that's a tough game, but you seem to bounce back well from it in your tilt since that point.
We just learned what it takes. We learned what it takes to win versus a good opponent. It was our first L of the season, and it was better to have it early versus a non-conference opponent, so that we know what it takes when we have a big game like this one coming up. And personally, what I learned from it was, so I had a chance to change the game, and I missed the play, so I took that personally, and uh, I wanted it to make me better, and I didn't want to feel like that no more. To I guess let the team down when I could have made a play to change it.
Yeah, well, that's always the tough thing. There's always the good and the bad on the film. There's always things we can learn and do better. For you though, I mean, kind of getting into your personal history, Grant, how does a guy from Miami, Florida, find out about a school up in Tennessee of all places? I've been to Nashville, I've been to Knoxville, I've been to Centerville, but I can't say I've ever been to Maryville. How did that get on your radar as a high school senior? And tell us a little about your journey on the way up here.
You got you. So it's kind of a crazy story. So in high school, I didn't play too much in high school. I was just like a special teams player, and I always gave it my all. And then one of the recruiting coaches, he came to my school, and he ended up, his name Coach O. He came and recruited me, and he got me up here. So it was like really only one of my only chances to come and play football. And my mom really pushed for me to come and play football, and so she sacrificed a lot for me to be here. So I'm just here taking the best of my opportunity. So yeah, that's how I got here.
I'm looking at your stats, Grant, and I mean, if unless my phone is glitching, which it often does, don't get me wrong, but it looks like you have had some really good numbers. I mean, overall, but you're missing in 2023. So I guess the folks might, or at least it's not showing up on my phone here. Why is 2023 missing? What don't we know about you from last year?
Last year, the first day of training camp, I tore my ACL, so I had to go through surgery with that, and I had to miss the season because of it.
So obviously you stuck around the team during the time, or became one of the best cheerleaders in the history of teammates. But I mean, for you personally, was that the first time you experienced an injury of that level? And how did you work through that? And how did you stay motivated and dedicated to playing in the sport of football? Because obviously that's a pretty devastating scenario for you to lose a season that way. Especially after COVID and everything else we've been going through in the last 5 years here. I mean, take us through that story a little bit about what kind of motivated you to continue here.
So when I got hurt, I mean, obviously, I was a little sad about it because I had big goals for myself that year, and so once I got hurt, I just I stayed positive with it. I didn't let it get me too down. So I attacked the rehab, I attacked therapy, and I looked at it positive. I was still here, be at the games with my teammates, be at practice. I was still a part of the team. And I just didn't look at it as something negative because I knew that as long as I attacked it and got back to it, that I could be back. And now I'm in the position I am now. So
with 19 tackles this season, you've clearly come through, and you've definitely rehabbed it well. That's for sure, and continued health out there. We don't want to see anything like that happen to you or anybody else for the rest of the season. JB, go ahead.
Well, I guess this kind of leads to, I guess, maybe the obvious question would be is, given the medical red shirt, do you think that you'll come back for a fifth year to be with the team in the SAA, or is sort of like you're going to see how it goes this year, talk to your family, figure out what the next step is, and go from there?
I mean, I would love to come back and play with my brothers, But I don't really have a decision yet on it, and I don't think it's one that I can make soon. But I could just say that I could just follow the plan that God has for me, and just keep faith in Him because He's gotten me this far, and I know that I can't fail with Him. So
South Beach, Maryville, Tennessee. South Beach, Maryville, Tennessee. I mean, it's a tough choice a little bit there, Grant. Listen, let's give you one final attempt here to talk about the game tomorrow and what you expect atmosphere-wise, especially because you guys are definitely getting a good following from how you guys have been playing lately. Winning seems to be the best motivator of crowd support out there, obviously. But I mean, when you look at a game like this and you look at everybody knows who Huntington is at the end of the day, and you guys are hosting this game. You're going to have a good crew there, I'm sure. Is that going to be what puts you guys over the top, having that motivation against a team as tough as Huntington? And just tell us what the experience is like with that crowd, with the folks that come out to support you out there.
I mean, so Huntington's always been a good game, a big game. So crowd's always been pretty good, pretty big, pretty loud, always into the game. But we didn't have a home game in a month. We had 2 away games. One game got canceled, and then a bye week. So we just ready to play home and put on a show for our fans. We were just talking about it with some of our teammates this week. So we know that if we could come out and win this game, that the crowd would be,
Well, they're going to be in for a treat.
Is this a
that's
homecoming
for sure.
game for you guys? Yeah, I mean, is this the actual homecoming game or just?
No, Methodist is actually next week, it looks like. So it would have been interesting if they made it a homecoming since you are coming back home here, but it didn't quite work out that way.
For sure.
But it's still a big game and a big crowd for sure. JB, if you don't mind, I'm going to do the honors here. And Grant, we have a tradition on our show. Great speaking with you, great meeting you, and having Maryville represented here on our show once and for all after all these years. So our tradition is to allow our student-athlete guests to give shout-outs to any family, friends, teammates, coaches, anybody that might be watching our show. Grant Henderson, the floor is yours for shout-outs. Take as long as you like. Go ahead.
All right, got you. First, I'd like to thank my mom, for allowing me to be here, sacrificing a lot for me to be here. I'd like to thank my teammates and coaches for always having my back and trusting me and putting me in positions to win. I'd like to thank my family for just always supporting me and being there for me for whatever I need. And my friends, for like the same, they always been there for me and supported me with whatever I chose to do, good, bad, or just always sticking with me. So I'm thankful for it all. And I'm thankful for you guys for having me on here to get a chance to talk with y'all and, represent my team.
Amen. What's Mom's first name?
Christine.
Christine, you got a good one there, and all those sacrifices you made, they're paying off. You already knew that, I'm sure,
absolutely.
Christine, but Grant's a good one, and we wish him and everybody associated with him nothing but the best of luck and success. Grant, we'll be looking for you in the box score and the video and everything else. If you guys win, I'm sure we're going to probably add you to the package of highlights we do on our Tuesday or Wednesday show, our Crunch Time show. So play hard, get an INT or something, and we'll be mentioning your name in Crunch Time, as we call it on our show. Good luck again, and thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Grant Henderson
Appreciate you too.
joining
Thanks,
us. Very good interview there. Good. Again, we always say it, and I'll say it again. Getting to meet guys we would otherwise probably never get to meet because, look, I can only get to 1 or 2 games a week throughout the country. You get to 1 or 2 games a year in the country.
1 or 2 a year. Tennessee is actually sort of close.
Maybe someday you'll get there. But no, it's an honor to get to meet guys like him and hear the backstories. Didn't even realize the injury until I was just going back down his stats, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's a missing year there. And to hear his motivation to come back and everything else, and he's got that decision away about, do I come back or do I move on with life at that point? And that's a big Division III question. Division I. Guys that still have the NFL dream, obviously, are like, well, I might need that extra year to play and, catch attention from scouts. it's not as easy in Division III in that realm. So it's definitely a tougher balance to achieve there. So thanks to Grant, thanks to everybody at Maryville for getting that together for us. We got another guest coming up in just a little bit here, but first let's go through the last two sets of games that we have to preview. Yeah. Region 5 looking a little lonely here with only two games listed. Yeah.
I tried to think of some other possibility, but I was like, no, I think this is it, man.
This is what happens when I get assigned Region 5 for games, games under the radar games, and it's like, Region 5, where am I going to find an under the radar game in Region 5? Because North Central is not an under the region team, nor is Wheaton. So it always is a challenge. This week, luckily, I had Region 1. Which
Lake Forest isn't.
Perfectly.
There's a lot of... there's a lot of not so, and it's interesting. This Rockford team, even though they're 3-2, they put up some crazy point totals. 74 last weekend. They've scored 43, 31. They took a couple of tough losses in week 3 and 4, but Aurora is one of the top teams, not only in this conference, but in the nation. So maybe this will be a good game. I don't know, maybe they'll beat them by 28, 35 points. We'll see. And then North Park, it's interesting. Most teams we don't really give a chance against North Central, but, this North Park team has actually had a pretty good season so far. They're 4-1. Their only loss was a sort of a 7-point head scratcher to Elmhurst of all teams. They beat Augustana, and they're going to take their shot. And so it's a night game at North Central. I'm sure the folks in Naperville will be fired up for that. And there was an article about North Park on D3Football.com you should check out and learn a little more about these guys. With the season that they're having and with sort of the unknown surrounding the expanded playoffs, maybe this is a Lakefront Bowl team in North Park, or maybe they'll shock the world this weekend. We'll see.
Shocking the world would be a big deal, that's for sure, in that type of situation.
Sorry, Isthmus Bowl. The Isthmus Bowl is the WIAC CCIW. Yeah, Isthmus Bowl, right.
Lakefront Cousin Subs Bowl is the second one that came along there, but you're right. I think the NAC is the one that actually gets to participate in the Cousin Subs Bowl, so we had that represented there as well. I'm sure we're going to get corrected any second on what we just screwed up. One thing I was just going to say about North Central, I've lost my train of thought there, but I really think we're waiting for the day, like when we have the Mount Union upset alerts or underplaying their ability alerts like they did against Otterbein a few weeks ago there. We just don't have those moments with North Central during the regular season. Even the Wheaton game, they just jump out to this huge lead against Wheaton 2 years in a row, and it's over. They did it against Aurora, and I don't remember a team in recent memory that has been able to sort of just withstand any eyebrow raising at all during their games. I don't raise my eyebrows at all at their games. I go look at a scoreboard and I'm like, there's North Central up by 60 or whatever it is. They are a force to be reckoned with, and we had a poll question with respect to the WIAC that we'll talk to our guest about a little bit, where I was surprised by the results that some people, or a lot of people out there, must think that it's going to be North Central and Cortland pretty much, or something close to it, that no WIAC team's going to make the Stag Bowl. But I think a good 65% plus at one point I saw assumed no WIAC team would make the Stag Bowl this year. Only 2 have made it in the last 10 years, and none have won it. So it's interesting when you have a team like North Central just dominating, and you have these teams in the WIAC just duking it out and killing each other every week, how this thing is overall playing out there. And maybe there's something to it. Maybe they are beating themselves to a pulp to a level that they can't bounce back for the playoffs. Maybe the extra playoff week with the byes will help things ultimately for the WIAC. We'll see. Let's get to the slide that talks about the WIAC, among others. And there is a Friday night game, as I said, and that is Stevens Point at Whitewater tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central at the Perk. So we'll be checking in on that one, obviously. We don't expect much fanfare or excitement in it, but yeah, It's the WEAC. What you may not expect it,
know.
but they're going to do it anyway. UW La Crosse versus UW-Eau Claire. Probably not the best game of the grouping. I do like the Stout River Falls game insofar as is Caleb Blaha going to play? And if not, their wide receiver extraordinaire may have to be quarterback again out there. That was a wild stat sheet that we had from him, last week. But Stout, after that big win versus Whitewater, Coolfoot Luke, right? That's our Stout guy there. That rose to fame.
We're trying to figure out if he has the best nickname or maybe it was Turbo from last year. But
Coolfoot did Luke I give him the Coolfoot Luke or did somebody else? I remember doing it back when.
I don't know if it came from I don't know if you did or if it came from ATN, but at the end of the day, it's still in a weekend where we saw a lot of missed field goals. I mean, having a good kicker is it's not necessarily an easy thing to come by. So I know he didn't go 6 for 6 or whatever it was, but he still got enough in to hang on for a big victory there. So. In these really tight games, sometimes it'll just come down to a field goal. We thought that Michael Stack was going to kick the game winner last weekend, and he missed. So, here we have Oshkosh hosting Platteville. This is going to be the Titans' homecoming game against the last undefeated team in the conference, and one of the remaining undefeated teams in Region 6 period. And the Pioneers are having a great season. Big stage. This is probably the biggest game of the weekend, so that's no surprise that you and I kind of had that as our pick. We also have Min Morris and Northwestern in a big UMAC showdown. We also have Linfield George Fox at 7:05 Eastern, and a couple of other games on the West Coast with Redlands, Kowloon, Pomona, and Chapman. But yeah, this Platteville-Oshkosh game is the game of Week 7, and so I think we should probably talk about it, Frank. That's what we're here for.
You want to talk about it with just you and me, or you want to talk about it with somebody that's probably a lot more educated in the game of football than either one of us combined, or both of us combined? I think that might be the way to do it.
That sounds like a good call right there. Yeah.
We didn't practice the name, the pronunciation, so he'll have to forgive us if we mess
what,
this
Frank?
up.
Wait. No.
Oh.
The great thing about the Titans website is that they have a pronunciation on the thing. It's Dietzen. Kyle Dietzen.
It is Dietzen.
That's how you say that.
I was going to do it, though, that way. Okay, I would have sounded so smart until I had to throw myself under the bus. But anyway, I got to watch him and his team play in person at the largest attendance in Division III on-campus history, over 21,000 at the Perk. There were several Oshkosh fans there, so it wasn't like it was all Whitewater, but a lot of it was. So let's not kid ourselves. But Kyle and company held that game together pretty well. 21-14 was, an admirable score in that atmosphere that day. And they're looking now to make some noise because they've got Platteville at Oshkosh next. Let's talk about it with Kyle Dietzen, junior linebacker from UW-Oshkosh. Kyle, how are we doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
We're good. You heard us talking a little bit about the WEAC and what is, just an onslaught week to week, it seems like, out there with these teams. You guys have had a really odd season in terms of how things have been. I kind of want to take you through certain things. We don't usually start with the slide that talks about, your scores so far, but I'm going to walk you through a little bit and kind of walk me through it too. First, those two games against Wheaton and Linfield. Defensively, you didn't have your legs under you all the time in either one of those games until it mattered. Toward the end of the game, it seemed like you guys defensively picked up steam at the right times. And a lot of people didn't have much great, exciting things to say about you coming to the season. Tell me about this defense and what you guys learned from those first two games this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to say we aren't really affected by the social media, what they say about us. We know what's in our room, and it's definitely special there. So the first 2 weeks, obviously we gave up points. Our defense is bend but don't break philosophy. I don't know if that's the right way or the wrong way, but that's us, and I don't mind it. And then going off that, throughout the game, we were getting scored on. But when final drive, when it came down to what mattered, we were fresh, we were healthy, and we were able to get a takeaway to win the games.
JB, if I could just for 1 second, our friend, colleague out there, Greg Thomas, was making a comment I saw yesterday about the Michigan Tech game. And yeah, it was a lopsided score. And he said, that one sticks out ultimately. And for us D3 prognosticators, I think one of the biggest mistakes we make out here is trying to say, okay, this Division III team against this non-Division III team, we're going to try to judge the game by it. Was Michigan Tech a better team than people assumed out there in terms of, what are they, in the GLIAC, I think, in Division II? It seems like they've had a reasonably good season overall in their Division II schedule. What happened in that game that, maybe folks like Greg and me and others out there probably should be like, okay, let's not even pay attention to that game. That's not who Oshkosh is.
Yeah, not going to lie, we got beat on all three phases of the game, offense, defense, special teams. The score says that. We lost, 44-7 maybe?
Yep.
So, yeah, they dominate us, excuse me, the entire game. So, yeah, we didn't show up that game. Every team has it, and we just had to move on. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
So, yeah, going into this weekend's game, I mean, you guys just got this big road win, a 19-point comeback, and now you're coming back home for homecoming. Tell us what the homecoming experience is like at Titan Stadium, and how much more excitement is there and being added to the fact that this is every week is probably feels like a conference championship game in the WEAC, but this is a big one, given the fact that the Pioneers have been off to such a strong start.
Oh, absolutely. We had 6 home games this season, so to be able to just play in front of our fans. I live close home, so I have a lot of support system that comes to every game, and to be able to play in front of the fans, it means a lot. Just seeing everyone cheer on the Titans, the whole community come together. It's a lot of fun, and this week it's going to be even more fun because it's homecoming, and just the atmosphere at Oshkosh is a lot of fun to play with. Doesn't always seem, we're not going to break the attendance record every week like Whitewater does, but we have loyal fans, we love them, and it's fun to play there.
Okay, so, I brought it up. I was at the Whitewater game. Guys played admirably, but it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. What did Coach Jennings say to you guys to sort of light the fire for the next game? Because that bounce back is one of the most prolific bounce backs we've seen this season. You could have kind of folded after losing a tight one against a rival like that. And instead, you started slow. It's kind of interesting how lacrosse has given up second half leads twice in a row, if my memory serves here. But what did Coach Jennings say even at halftime in that game to get you guys motivated to beat lacrosse and do what you did? Because that was a pretty big thud we heard on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. So we've had a couple of interviews already about that, and everyone asks, what did they say at halftime? And honestly, it was the seniors, it was the captains, it was me. We were like, yeah, we've been playing like crap this game. We're down, 14 or something points at halftime, and we decided to make the change. Every time they scored, it was either a communication error. Like, obviously, it wasn't they're better than us because they clearly weren't. But yeah, the errors we had, it was schematics, and we communicated it, and we went out and executed the way we should have executed the first 2 quarters.
Yeah, Kyle, tell us a little bit about this. He's as old as my kid, so I can call him a kid. This freshman quarterback you have, Cole Warren. I mean, the last couple years, we've been having fun, talking about Kobe Berghammer, one of the best names in the nation. But here you have this young guy, probably barely 18 years old, and he's leading the offense. You've gone up against him in practice, for 2 months now or something like that. What has it been like for you as one of the defensive leaders on the team, watching this young man kind of grow into this leadership role where he's able to pull off, basically 19-point comebacks? Yeah, he was my offensive player of the week for week 6. I mean, what an impressive performance for this young man in a big-time game to score 4 touchdowns and bring you back to win this one.
Yeah, just the composure he had against, I think they were top 15 team last week is unbelievable. I know when I was 18 years old, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that. But Jennings' scheme on the offense, he called a great game for Cole. Cole's abilities really showed. Definitely that final drive and that 4th down pass to Trey, the pocket collapse, he stepped up perfectly. And you don't see that as a freshman. He's just so calm in the pocket. In each game, you can between our first game and our previous game, you can just see how comfortable he's getting with that offensive line. With Trey, passing to John, passing to Clayton. Like, we have studs on the offense, and just putting the ball in the receiver's hands and our running back's hands with Justice especially, and then Cole being able to run. It's a great offense to be on, or not to be on, but to have on the team, I guess. Yeah.
Well, now they're going to put you in a 3 running back package. Now that you said that, so.
Yeah, I think you got to put him in at the goal line. Let's go.
Yep, there you go.
Fullback,
Kyle, you just sunk yourself there. Or maybe
Coach Jennings, come on, let's give this guy the ball. Let's see him run it in from 2 yards out.
Oh, God. Justice, Lovelace, Trey, Tetzlaff, right? I mean, you got some names on your offense, that's for sure. But Kyle Dietzen, let me ask you a question here, because a lot of the WEAC teams recruit for the same guy, so there's no secret to that. Many of them have decisions to make inside the Wisconsin system, and why Oshkosh for you? I don't know if it was Coach Jennings at the time that recruited you, because everything's thrown off now with the COVID situation and, the years people came in and everything else. But why did you pick Oshkosh ultimately here?
Well, the biggest thing is being close home. As you can see, I'm at my house right now. My mom still does my laundry, which is amazing. I get free food whenever I come home, so that's the perks for it. But in all honesty, my senior year of high school, I live 15 minutes away from Oshkosh, so we have connections already. But my senior year, we had COVID, so we played in the spring, and 2 of the seniors at the time, one's actually the defensive coordinator at Stevens Point, Trent Lacombe. He came down and he helped Amro practice because he really wanted to be a coach, obviously. So he came down, got a little experience with that. Justin Kujabowski, he's also from Amro. He coached at Kimberly now. So just, I guess, giving me the brotherhood when I was 17, 18 years old, and they didn't need to care about me. They didn't need to care about me. Why did they need to care about me? But they did. And that kind of just showed the true testament to what that program is, or what our program is. And honestly, the brotherhood is the biggest reason why I went to Oshkosh.
Well, it's certainly worked out for the Titans. I mean, you kind of, like most guys, you got your first experience kind of earlier in freshman sophomore year. You had close to 20 tackles. But then last season, you kind of had a breakout with 72 total, 32 solo, 5 tackles for loss. This season you're already off to, I think you got 91 in your career. You might crack 100 this weekend. That would be a pretty cool thing for you. I would like to see that. And so I know we'd love to keep shooting the breeze with you all morning, but we kind of have to keep this thing close to an hour. So we have predictions to get to. We'll be talking about your game there. But Kyle, thank you for joining us. And please, would love to hear your shout outs for any friends. Hey, Mom, thanks for doing the laundry. We got to love that. Cooking. Come on, let's go. Any friends, family, coaches, anybody wanted to say hey to Kyle Dietzen, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I just want to thank my support system. Every week they travel with me. My mom, my dad, my brother, friends. aunts, uncles, things like that. They support me, home, away games, off seasons especially. My roommates, I have 9 of them. It's kind of crazy sometimes, but it's just fun to be with them, and I appreciate them for all they do for me. And my coaches and my teammates couldn't do it without you, and I look forward to playing tomorrow with them.
9 roommates. That's got to be a hellhole. I no wonder why you go home and have the laundry done and everything else. Oh, my God.
Yeah, get me out of here, man.
Oh, I'm sure you're all very nice young men and everything else, but no. I mean, I was a senior pledge as a fraternity brother at Union College, and there was no way in hell I would have lived in the house if I had been doing it when I was younger. So that's basically a makeshift fraternity right there. You got in your tenplex or whatever you want to call that. But Kyle,
that's a lot of guys.
You guys. I didn't get to talk to you guys much, obviously, a couple of weeks ago. It is good to catch up with you. Please send our best to Coach Jennings, who I know is a fan of the show. Don't beat up on each other too much because, as I was saying, the poll says people are losing faith nationally that the WEAC will be in the Stag Bowl. Now, listen, you were one of the 2 teams that has been in the Stag Bowl in the last 10 years for the WEAC. Oshkosh a number of years ago now, but it's 2024. We'll see where you guys go. I'm gonna stick my neck out here and say I think there will be a WEAC team in the Stag Bowl this year, and that goes against what the folks on social media, as you said, are saying right now. But it's going to take a Herculean effort, probably with the bracket anybody has to face from the WEAC. We'll see if Oshkosh is one of the teams vying for it at the end of the season. Thanks for joining us, Kyle.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck Saturday, man.
Kyle Dietzen.
Number 9.
Junior linebacker, yep. And Mom is the MVP there for sure, doing the laundry and the food.
Yeah, for sure.
As I get the clock ready here, we do have to get going here, as you had stated. I got 12 minutes on the clock, but, listen, let's not take all 12 minutes, okay? We don't need 12 minutes. We are better than this. Are we not? Are you ready?
I would like to think so, but sometimes we just start yapping and okay, let's try to be efficient here.
Yeah, well, good luck on that. Well, efficiency means first having the theme song ready for this. It did fit. I never actually checked. Week 7 predictions. You lead me by 4 games. I got them right where I want them, folks. Again, it wasn't much fun when I was in the lead, so it's more fun this way, playing from behind here at this point. I'm going to start the clock. I'm going to move the first game into position. I start this week. It's FDU Florham at Del Val. I predicted a 4-way tie in the MAC after this week in quick hits, so that means that I am assuming that Del Val wins this game at home. I do expect a good game, though. I think Del Val wins, but by a score of more like 21-17 as the defenses start to dig in that game. Del Val.
Yeah, originally I was going to pick the Aggies too, but I was on my walk this morning and I was looking down at the scoreboard from the last couple of weeks, and Del Val only beat Leb Val by 5 points. It was a road game, but when in week 4, when FDU Florham played the Leb Val, they won by 22. Ryan Thomas was 17 for 20 for 200-plus yards and 2 passing touchdowns. The running back had almost 200 yards rushing. I'm going with the Devils, baby. They're going to pull off a huge upset, maybe not an upset, the way things are going this year, and they're gonna take it to them. I think they'll win 31-21.
AVC is listening, I'm sure, to that one, and he might be mortified at the same time that you picked them. Listen, you got to look past that Alvernia game to make that decision. You realize, and so
that was not pretty. I'm hoping that was a hiccup, that they were looking ahead.
Yeah, that's what I do think happened, but I still think Del Val has got that game. We'll see. If I'm interviewing FDU Florham players tomorrow, I'll be just as pleased. I have no desire to be right or wrong on a game like that. That's a good game that I'm going to be attending. Bridgewater State at WestCon, you start.
Yeah, so I'll take the Wolves, I guess is what they call themselves now. High-scoring game, 42-24.
41-24. The Wolves.
Okay.
Oh boy, Grove City, Washington, Jefferson. I did not pick this as the upset special of the week on Quick Hits, and so I'm going to stay in that frame of mind. But boy, Grove City, offensively, what they did last week is not going to cut it, okay? They do need more in terms of the output and the yardage. So being the field manager and game manager, Logan Pfeiffer discussed in our interviews, is important, don't get me wrong, but you can't win every week without the stats showing up. So I'm going to say Grove City does get the Logan Pfeiffer special there and does get more points on the board to hold off W&J 31-27. 31-27 Grove City.
Yeah, so last week I was a little skeptical of the Grove City defense, given some losses to graduation, but they proved me wrong. And so I'm going to stick with the Wolverines in a close one that they'll pull out late, probably 28-24.
Same distance, basically, 4 points.
Score.
Yep, Rowan at Christopher Newport. This is a pretty important game in the end, Jack, for all intents and purposes. Yeah. Salisbury's got to face Rowan still down the line. What do you think here?
You know, it's interesting because Rowan gave Hopkins a real rough go, and they won last weekend. I could see them winning this game, but I feel like, I don't know, Newport's still the defending champs, and they lost in a pretty heartbreaking fashion to Dickinson last week, so I think they're going to try to, they're motivated to bounce back. It's going to be a close call, though. I think if the Captains win, it's going to be like a 31-28 kind of game.
Picking Rowan. I think that they've come a long way this season. Christopher Newport, I think, might be a little bit of wobbly legs right now for whatever reason, especially at that Salisbury game. They haven't gotten their full wherewithal back, I don't think. And so I think Rowan's hitting them at the right time right now. So I'm going to pick Rowan in this game, 24-20 to win. Next up, we're going to Region 3, UMHB at Howard Payne. This is not an easy game to pick after everything we saw last week.
No.
Isaac faced 3 interceptions before he got yanked in that game, I believe. I don't think he was injured. I think he just got yanked in the game.
Yeah, no, he just had a bad game, yeah.
Yep. So, we're going to see the moxie he has if they do start him again. I don't know if they will or won't ultimately. I don't see why you don't. You give him his confidence back in a game like this. Howard Payne is no pushover, but I'm going to give UMHB the benefit of the doubt here to a certain degree, 27-20.
Yeah, I had to pull up. I wasn't really sure what Howard Payne was up to this season. Their only win is against Lyon, and they lost to Wittenberg. They lost to ETBU last weekend. So yeah, I think the crew will bounce back. Take this one, say 35-14.
They played Hardin-Simmons reasonably well early in the season, right, to open the season week 1?
Yeah. 38-6. I mean, it was better.
Okay,
could have been
worse.
Well,
if I remember correctly, it didn't blow out immediately, though. If I was watching that score that day correctly, it's a blur.
It was 7-6 after the first quarter. It was 24-6 at halftime, and Hardin-Simmons only scored 14 points the rest of the game. So could have been worse.
USA South, Huntington versus Maryville. We had a great guest, Grant Henderson, on earlier in the show. If you missed it, the archive will be up soon. I guess I start here, right? So, look, Huntington loves the fact that I pick against them all the time, I think, because it happens more often than not, and I end up looking like a fool, like always. But, you're playing at Maryville. They seem to have something special going on. Losing the center by 3 points is not a small Pyrrhic victory of sorts out there. So I'm going to give Maryville the nod at home here. Low scoring, 2014.
Yeah, I wanted to pick Maryville too, and maybe I need to be strategic and try to go against the mayor on this one. But the fact that Huntington lost to Hendricks a couple weeks ago the way they did makes me wonder about this team, and they got blown out by Barry. So they're beating teams in the USA South. They should. I'm going to go with the Scots. I think it'll be a big home crowd, a lot of emotion. They've had some good games there. 31-27. Great Scots.
Great Scots. The game, there we go. Baldwin Wallace to John Carroll. Good luck on this one.
Yeah. It's funny because John Carroll dropped out of the top 25. But they're still theoretically in the mix here. I just think the Blue Streaks are a little stronger, especially at home. So I think they'll take this one 35-21.
Yeah, I mean, we're holding the 2 losses against them in the poll, and one of the losses was a real challenge to Mount Union at the end of the day. The other one was, okay, Whitewater whitewashed them pretty much on the scoreboard. Okay, granted, Whitewater has not had the season of seasons because of the 2 losses now, but I give John Carroll the benefit of the doubt in this situation. Coach Bierman does well in these types of scenarios. At home, I think it is John Carroll's game to win here, and they will, 27-21. Staying in the OAC, Marietta Muskingum, what is it, 5-0 versus 4-1 in this game, I believe? Marietta being the 5-0 team. Yep. I think they're going to continue rolling here for one more. I'm going to give Marietta the nod here to go 6-0 by a 34-21 score.
I think the Pioneers, right? I think they're going to win by a little more than that. I'll take them 42-21.
Interesting. Rockford at Aurora. Are you going to pick the upset on this one?
Nah, I'll stick with the Spartans. I think they're going to put up a lot of points. To say like 48-20.
41-17 was my score, honestly, for Aurora. So we're the same there. Okay, now for the WEAC wackiness continued. Platteville at Oshkosh. I start this one. Every time I pick against Platteville, they just keep screwing me over on the win-loss records here. So, I mean, why stop now? I don't know. I just like Oshkosh's offense more when it's running well. And we saw that in that second half last week. This freshman quarterback is special. This freshman quarterback has signs of being a little bit like Luke Lannon, minus, I think, some of the speed and the legs, but being able to go 4 years ultimately as a starter. He's just got to get consistent. That's the biggest problem with any freshman quarterback, consistency. I think with guys like Tetzlaff and Lovelace there for him, though, he's going to be okay. I'm going to give Oshkosh a 21-20 victory here. Cole Warren, don't let me down.
Yeah, I think when you look a little closer to what's going on with the Pioneers, I mean, the first 3 games that they played, nothing really to write home about. They beat La Crosse, but now La Crosse is 0-2 in the league, and I think they've got 3 losses on the season because of the out-of-conference or out-of-division game they played. And then, River Falls, can't really take much from that with Blaha getting knocked out early on. So, yeah, I think I'll take the home team in front of a big homecoming crowd. Titans it's going to be a tight one, but maybe it'll come down to a kick or something. But, yeah, like a lower scoring, like 21-17 type of game. Titans.
And we had part 2, Stout at River Falls. Stout was the big
I was wondering if we would get Stout, because Rambo's carving knife reminded us that he was the one who came up with Cool Foot Luke, not us or D3Football.com.
I don't think that's true. Carving. I think I did it before he did it. We're going to go back in the archive in that.
Okay.
I believe I broke out on Crunch Time one year, whether it was last season or what. So, Rambo, we're going to have to go back and find the source of this. I swear to you, I think I crafted because of the whole Cool Hand Luke thing. Now, maybe we came up with it separately, too. That's possible as well, because it's an easy reference to make with Luke Cool Hand Luke, Cool Foot Luke in his case. So, we'll see. Anyway, we got to pick a game with 30 seconds left. Go.
The weird thing about Stout is that they lost to Carroll, who's now 2-3 in week 1. And then they didn't, they played a couple of games. I mean, the Whitewater game was just a shocker. And so can they build off of that? Normally I would say No, but River Falls with like a third string quarterback. I mean, I don't know, man. I think I'm going to take the Falcons. It's not going to be pretty though. This is going to be like a 17-14 slugfest.
Yeah, River Falls laid such a bad egg last week. Let's not kid ourselves. And it really sourced itself. It was a 0-0 game, if I remember correctly, when Caleb Blaha went down.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about taking wind out of sails in a big game and everything else, and they just never recovered. Their backup quarterback, who obviously wasn't prepared to be in that position, did admirably with his legs as well as his arm there. But at the same time, what do you expect in that situation? Now they've had a week to plan. If Caleb's not good to go, we don't know. I'm going to guess probably not. That looked like an injury that was a kind of a bad strain,
Shoulder
hyperextension type thing, or something like that. Yeah. So we'll hopefully Caleb is okay. I'm going to pick River Falls like you did as the clock expires and the song expires here by a final score of 27-17. And that does it. JB, how do we watch Division III action in Week 7?
Well, let's see here. I should have been more prepared for that question because I knew it
Well,
was coming.
tonight you can watch Stevens Point at Whitewater, which
Yeah,
could be an interesting game. How's that? I'll start you off.
Yeah, I don't think so, but it's always good to see the Warhawks. If you just like D3 football, I would check that out just in general. But yeah, going back to where things are going, there aren't a ton of noon games. It seems everything's kind of starting at 1 o'clock for the most part with some of the bigger games. But Norwich Merchant Marine, we always appreciate these service academy type games and guys, so you can tune into that right at noon. You got Salve Coast Guard at 1, another service academy. Trinity Middlebury should be a good one as well. You got Hopkins F&M, that's the upset special that you had on Quick Hits, Frank, along with Rowan, Christopher Newport, RPI, and Ithaca. Also at 1, Hendricks Center is a 1 o'clock game. And then as you kind of switch into the 2 p.m. time slot, you got games like DePaul, Denison, you've got Mary Hardin Baylor, Howard Payne, Huntington Maryville is in the 2 o'clock spot, which should be a really good one. Rockford Aurora as well. And then out on the in Region 6, you got Stout River Falls, you got Platteville Oshkosh also at 2 o'clock. And then as we kind of get later in the day, you got games like TGC&J and Kane at 3. You got Bridgewater State at Western Connecticut at 5. You got Grove City versus Washington Jeff at 6. One of the best D3 broadcasts, period, is W&J, so that's worth checking out just for the broadcast alone. Bridgewater Shenandoah is also at 6 o'clock. Hardin Simmons will be kicking off at 7 Eastern against McMurray. And then we got some Marietta Muskingum. One of the games we picked is also a 7 o'clock kickoff. North Park North Central at 7 o'clock. And then Linfield and George Fox are at 7:05. And for those red-eye late-night games, you got some SCIAC action starting at 10 o'clock. And I think that's it. We're down to 21 undefeated teams after Week 6. Will we go below 20 this weekend? We'll see.
You subtly reminded me to put the slate actually up there after you floor them. Springfield, Trinity, Mass Dartmouth in Region 1. Region 2, it's Case, Cortland, Grove City, Salisbury, Ursinus. Only 1 in Region 3. Is that really possible? Hardin Simmons? That's crazy at this point. Region 4, DePaul, Hope, Marietta, and Mount Union. Region 5, Lake Forest, and North Central. There's more in Region 5 than in Region 3. I would have never guessed that. You're just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And in Region 6, St. John's, St. Olaf, which will be a big MIAC game. I believe they do face each other eventually here. Platteville and Whitworth. So, Platteville's really a 5-0. That's crazy. Maybe we picked wrong. I don't know. I for some reason I thought they had a loss in there. Yeah, whoopsie.
One thing that slide did remind me that as far as other dark horse teams goes, I mean, if they win their conference, I don't think you can say they're a dark horse, but I have a feeling that this Hope Flying Dutchman team might do some damage in the playoffs, kind of like we saw Alma last year. I think they're going to be coming into this. They have a good chance at going unbeaten, so they'll probably have a good seed, but I wouldn't surprise me if this Hope team does some, goes pretty far. We'll see what happens. But thanks to guys like Big Tone and Rambo's Carving Knife and others for chiming in with this morning with some questions. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Grant Henderson and everybody at Maryville for joining us, as well as Kyle Dietzen from UW-O. I got it right this time, unlike last show. So hey, there you go.
OWU, right? But anyway, good job rapping. That's all I need to say is watch us on X throughout the weekend for updates, Tuesday or Wednesday for crunch time, and you know where to find us, folks. So stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting week 7. We are past the halfway mark in the regular season, getting to the halfway mark in the entire season, including playoffs. That's coming up soon, although a little bit differently now because of the whole gap between the semifinals and the Stag Bowl that we've got to get used to. Long story short, we will see you soon. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.